My name is Donna, and I'm 38 years old. 6 months ago, my world ended in a single phone call. My husband Mark and our 10-year-old son Daniel were driving to soccer practice when a truck ran a red light. They never came home. One moment I was folding laundry, the next I was screaming into a phone, told to rush to the hospital where it was already too late. Since then, my apartment has felt more like a tomb than a home. Every corner holds a memory. Daniel's sneakers by the door, Mark's jacket still hanging in the closet. I keep scrolling through old photos until my eyes blur. Sometimes I catch myself talking to them, as if my voice could pull them back from wherever they went. Dr. Peterson, my therapist, says grief isn't linear, but mine feels like an anchor pulling me under day after day. He prescribed antidepressants and sleeping pills after I stopped eating and barely slept. They dull the edges, but the ache never leaves. Nights are the worst silence, so heavy it hums. Mark had left everything to me. The city house, the downtown apartment, the mountain retreat, and most of all, his company, a construction firm we built side by side over 12 years. I was his deputy, his partner in every blueprint and late-night strategy session. But after the accident, I couldn't even look at the office without collapsing. My father offered to take over just until I felt stronger. "You focus on healing," he said, resting a hand on my shoulder in the funeral's dim aftermath. His tone was gentle, steady, the voice of a father who only wanted to help. I wanted to believe him. Unlike my siblings, he never hinted about money or property. He never asked for anything at all. And so, with my chest hollowed out by grief, I signed the papers, giving him temporary control. This morning the phone dragged me out of another restless half-sleep. My father's voice crackled through. "Donna, your mother and I want you to come to dinner. Sunday, 2 weeks from now. Everyone will be there." I hesitated, staring at the blinds, filtering weak daylight into the room. My family's noise, small talk, forced laughter, was the last thing I wanted. Then I heard my mother's voice, soft but insistent. "Sweetheart, you've been locked away too long. We're worried about you. Just one evening. Roast beef, mashed potatoes, your favorite. Like old times." Like old times. The words made me bite my lip until it almost bled. There were no old times anymore, not without Mark and Daniel. Still, Dr. Peterson had urged me to leave the apartment more, to rejoin the world in small steps. My parents weren't wrong. I was hiding. "All right," I said, surprising myself. "I'll come." Mother's voice brightened instantly, almost too quickly. "Wonderful. We'll make it special." The moment I hung up, regret pooled in my stomach. Something about her tone, too rehearsed, too eager, sat uneasily with me. Not an hour later, the phone rang again. Robert Chen, Mark's lawyer and longtime family friend. His voice was tight, uncharacteristically urgent. "Donna, we need to meet. Tomorrow, if possible. It's important." "What's going on? Is it the company?" My pulse quickened. "This isn't a phone conversation. Cafe on 5th Street. 2 o'clock. The one you and Mark used to visit." He paused as though weighing whether to say more, then added, "I'll explain everything then." When the line went dead, I found myself staring at Daniel's framed school photo on the mantel. Robert had been by Mark's side for 15 years, trusted, steady, practically family. If he was this worried, something was wrong. Very wrong. I swallowed a pill to chase away the storm in my chest, but sleep never came that night. I lay staring at the ceiling, wondering what truth was waiting for me in that cafe, and why I suddenly dreaded Sunday dinner more than anything else. The next afternoon, I forced myself out of my apartment for the first time in weeks. The air outside felt sharp, almost too bright after months of dim curtains. My hands trembled as I locked the door behind me, as if leaving that apartment was somehow betraying Mark and Daniel. The cafe on 5th Street hadn't changed red brick walls, chalkboard menus, the faint smell of roasted beans and cinnamon. I used to sit here with Mark, sketching building plans on napkins, laughing about deadlines. Now walking in alone felt like trespassing in a life I no longer owned. Robert was already there, tucked into a corner booth. Normally, he radiated calm, crisp suits, steady gaze, the kind of man who never fidgeted. But today, he kept scanning the room, fingers drumming nervously against his coffee cup. "Donna," he said, standing halfway before sinking back down, "I ordered you a cappuccino. Thought you might need it." I slid into the seat, my pulse quickening. "You're scaring me, Robert. What's going on?" He leaned in, lowering his voice until it was almost a whisper. "Your parents came to see me last week. They asked me how to make your company legally theirs." For a moment, his words didn't register. I blinked at him, sure I'd misheard. "Make it theirs." "What are you talking about?" "They claim you're unstable. That grief has clouded your judgment. They wanted to know the steps to have you declared mentally incompetent so they could gain guardianship over you. The cafe noises seemed to fade into a dull roar in my ears. My parents. My voice cracked. You're saying they want to take everything. Robert's jaw tightened. Your father said you haven't stepped foot in the office in half a year. He described you as fragile, irrational, incapable of handling complex decisions. Your mother agreed and asked what papers she'd need to file to become your legal guardian. I felt a rush of nausea, my own mother reducing me to a child who couldn't even sign her own name. Robert hesitated, then continued. They also mentioned your siblings. Jake has been eyeing the mountain house. Emma wants money for her own place. They framed it as protecting you from doing something reckless with your inheritance. But Donna... He lowered his voice further. It's not protection. It's theft dressed in concern. My mind reeled. Suddenly, all the innocent comments over the past month sharpened into daggers. Jake's casual remark, "You don't even use the country place. Why not let me take it off your hands?" Emma's complaints about rent, her sly jokes about me having too much for one person. My mother's coaxing, "You don't need all these properties, sweetheart. You're alone now." Pieces I had brushed aside now locked into a pattern. They hadn't been supporting me in my grief. They'd been circling, waiting for me to collapse. "What did you tell them?" I whispered. "That I wouldn't help. I told them I wouldn't be part of anything that betrayed Mark's trust." Robert's eyes softened. "But they'll find another lawyer if I don't warn you. You have to act now." For the first time in months, the fog inside me shifted not from grief, but from rage. They think they can declare me unfit. They think I'll just hand over everything Mark and I built. My voice shook, but not from weakness. They picked the wrong woman. Robert nodded, though worry flickered in his eyes. We need two things immediately. First, medical evaluations proving your mental competence, independent psychiatrist, not just Dr. Peterson. Second, an audit of the company. If your father's already overstepping, we need evidence. I swallowed hard, my hands curling into fists on the table. Can you arrange both? Yes, but quietly. If he suspects, he'll try to cover his tracks. The waiter dropped off my cappuccino, the foam heart trembling as if it knew my world was shifting again. I didn't touch it. My heart was already pounding too fast. "Robert," I said finally, "for the first time since Mark and Daniel died, I feel awake. Angry, yes, but awake. If my family wants a war, I'll give them one." Robert's lips curved into the faintest smile. "That's the Donna I remember, and I think it's the one your husband would want to see now." I walked out of the cafe into the blinding sunlight, my grief still heavy but no longer paralyzing. My parents thought I was too broken to fight. They had no idea I was just beginning. The following morning, I stood outside the glass tower of Mark's company for the first time since the funeral. My reflection on the mirrored facade startled me. Hollow eyes, hair pulled back hastily, a suit that hung looser than it used to. I hesitated at the revolving door, my chest tight. This building had once been my second home, every hallway echoing with Mark's footsteps, every office a piece of the life we built together. Now stepping inside felt like trespassing into my own past. Mrs. Collins, the receptionist, gasped, nearly spilling her coffee. "We weren't expecting you today." I forced a polite nod. Neither was I. Mark's old office, my office by right, was occupied by my father now. I paused at the doorway. The heavy oak desk where Mark and I once leaned over blueprints was cluttered with golf magazines and unopened files. The curtains were half-drawn dust curling along the window ledge. My father's jacket was missing. The room felt abandoned, as though its new occupant only passed through. "He's rarely here," whispered Mrs. Garcia, his secretary, catching my glance. "Only comes once, maybe twice a week. He says most business can be handled from home." Her voice carried a trace of unease, as if she wasn't sure she should be telling me this. I nodded, my stomach twisting. Mark had lived in this office, working 12-hour days, sometimes more. My father, it seemed, treated it like a hobby. I turned down the hall toward Human Resources. Jennifer Walsh, the HR director, straightened when she saw me. Relief flickered across her face. "Donna, it's good to see you back." "Jennifer, I need you to be honest with me. Have there been any unusual hiring requests?" She hesitated before pulling a folder from her drawer. "Actually, yes. Your father submitted applications for 3 new management positions. One for Jake as project coordinator, another for Emma as a marketing consultant, and one for Tom, financial advisor." The names hit me like blows. My siblings and Emma's husband, none of whom had ever set foot in this company, were suddenly lined up for high-salaried roles. What salaries? I asked, my voice tight. 80,000 for Jake, 70 for Emma, 75 for Tom. Jennifer's eyes darted to mine. It felt off. But with your father acting CEO, my hands were tied. I inhaled slowly, my nails digging into the folder. Effective immediately put a freeze on all new hires. No contracts signed, no offers made until I personally approve. Jennifer's shoulders eased as though she had been waiting for this order. Yes, ma'am. Next, I went to the accounting office. Margaret Thompson had been with us since the early days, a woman with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. She stood when I entered, clasping my hand tightly. Donna, I was hoping you'd come. What's been happening here, Margaret? I asked quietly. Her lips pressed thin before she turned her computer screen toward me. Rows of transactions glowed on the monitor. Your father authorized monthly payments, 20,000, sometimes more, to companies we've never dealt with before. Consulting firms, he called them. Strategic Business Solutions, Mountain View Consulting, International Development Group. My pulse thudded in my ears. Fate. I can't prove it, but their addresses lead to P.O. boxes, and the accounts, offshore. Margaret shook her head. When I asked questions, he brushed me off. Said you wanted it handled that way. I gripped the back of her chair, grounding myself. Mark and I had sweated blood to keep this company solvent in its first years. And now, while I sat drowning in grief, my father had been bleeding it dry. You did the right thing, I said firmly. From now on, no transfers, no payments without my signature. Understood? Margaret exhaled, visibly relieved. Understood. By the time I left her office, the air felt heavier, as if the walls themselves were carrying secrets. My father hadn't just been plotting to take over, he was already stealing, hollowing out the company from the inside. That night I called Robert. My voice shook, not from fear, but from fury. You were right. He's moving money. Fake firms, shell accounts. It's already happening. We'll start the audit immediately, Robert replied. Quietly. I'll set up a team in a separate office. He won't know until it's too late. I stared out my apartment window at the city lights flickering below. My grief still clung to me like a second skin, but underneath it something else stirred. Purpose. Resolve. If my family thought I was broken, they were about to learn how dangerous a broken woman can be when she starts to put herself back together. 2 weeks later, I drove to my parents' house with my hands clenched so tightly on the steering wheel that my knuckles turned white. Every mile closer felt like walking toward a stage where the script had already been written, me the fragile widow and them, the concerned family. Only this time I wasn't following their script. The dining room was already full when I stepped in. My father sat at the head, his posture regal, as though he owned more than the table. My mother hovered near the kitchen, fussing over plates of roast beef and mashed potatoes, smiling too brightly. Jake lounged back with his wife and children. Emma whispered something to Tom that made them both smirk. All of them turned toward me, with the same rehearsed expression, concern masking calculation. Donna, you look terrible, my mother said immediately, her voice dripping pity. So pale, so thin. Emma nodded, biting her lip as if she cared. You've been alone too much. It's not healthy. I slid into a chair at the far end, folding my hands in my lap. I'm fine. No, sweetheart, my mother pressed, taking her seat. You're not fine. We can all see it. You hardly eat, you hardly sleep. You're still drowning in grief, and that breaks our hearts. My father cleared his throat as though rehearsing for a performance. Your mother's right. You need real help, Donna. Not just therapy. I have a close friend, a psychiatrist. He specializes in cases like yours. He could admit you to a clinic for a few weeks, help you heal properly. Emma leaned forward, her eyes glinting. It would be best for you, for everyone. The words hung in the air. A clinic. That was the trap wrapped in silk and smiles. A clinic meant guardianship. Guardianship meant everything Mark left me would be signed away with a doctor's pen. I looked around the table, taking in their eager faces. The clink of cutlery sounded almost menacing. Roast beef, mashed potatoes, a staged performance in the costume of family. You think I don't know what you're doing? My voice was calm, but sharp enough to slice through the air. The room froze. Even the children seemed to sense the sudden chill. Jake set his fork down, feigning confusion. What do you mean? You want me declared incompetent, I said, watching their faces tighten. You want my company, my money, my houses, all under the pretense of helping me. My mother gasped, hand fluttering to her chest. Donna, how could you say such a thing? We only want what's best for you. My father recovered quickly, steepling his hands. Listen, Donna, you don't have to make this hard. Step aside voluntarily. We'll give you the apartment a monthly allowance. You won't have to worry about a thing. Isn't that easier? I laughed to sound brittle and foreign, but real. Easier for you, maybe. His jaw tightened. If you refuse, we'll go to court. We'll prove you're unfit, and we will win. I stood slowly, every eye fixed on me. My heart pounded, but my voice didn't shake. Then I'll see you in court. And when I do, you'll learn that I am not the fragile woman you think I am. I am Mark's partner. I built that company, and I will not let you steal it. Silence swallowed the room. My father's face darkened. Emma's smile flickered. Jake shifted uncomfortably. For the first time that evening, I saw something in their eyes that wasn't greed. It was doubt. I set my napkin down carefully on the plate, turned, and walked out. Behind me, I heard the scrape of chairs. My mother's faint, desperate call of my name. But I didn't look back. For months, I had been asleep in my grief. Now I was awake, and they had no idea what I was capable of. The courthouse smelled faintly of polish and old paper, a place where lives were rewritten in ink and verdicts. My entire family sat on the petitioner's side, dressed in somber colors, as if attending a funeral mine. My father straight-backed in a navy suit, my mother dabbing her eyes with a tissue, Jake and Emma sitting close together, their spouses whispering rehearsed sympathy. I took my seat beside Robert. My palms were damp, but when he placed a quiet hand on my arm, I steadied. He whispered, "Remember, they'll act like saints. Don't let it rattle you." The judge entered, stern eyes sweeping the room. This court will hear the petition of guardianship concerning Donna Collins. My father testified first. His voice was calm, practiced, dripping with paternal worry. "Your Honor, we didn't come here for money. We're here to save our daughter. She hasn't worked in months. She's withdrawn from the world. We fear she'll destroy her life and the company her husband left her. We only want to protect her." I stared at him, the man who taught me to ride a bike, now painting me as helpless. Then my mother took the stand, tears glistening as she clutched her tissue. "Donna is my baby. She's drowning in grief. Pills, therapy, none of it works. We're terrified she'll lose everything, or worse, hurt herself." Her voice trembled on the word hurt, and she sniffled into her tissue like the perfect grieving mother. Jake followed his tone steady, almost rehearsed. "My sister inherited more than she can handle, multiple properties, millions of dollars. But she's not capable of managing it responsibly. Someone needs to protect her from herself." Emma chimed in next, adding the final stroke. "All we want is what's best for her. She needs care, not stress. Guardianship is love, not punishment." Each word was a knife. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed them myself. Their lies were wrapped so neatly in concern. For a moment, I felt the edges of doubt press in. What if the judge believed them? Then Robert rose. His calm presence filled the room like a tide turning. He carried a thick folder, and when he spoke, his voice cut through the air with measured precision. "Your Honor, this case is not about care. It is about greed." He laid out the evidence like cards on a table. The financial audit, $120,000, siphoned into shell companies with fabricated contracts, all authorized by Donna's father. The nepotism scheme, applications for Jake, Emma, and Tom with inflated salaries for roles they were unqualified to fill. The psychiatric evaluations, 2 independent doctors declaring Donna fully competent. Grief, yes. Mental incompetence, no. The therapist's statement, grief is not madness. Medication does not erase capacity. The courtroom grew hushed. My family shifted uneasily. My father's jaw clenched. My mother's tissue stilled. Robert read from one report, Miss Collins demonstrates no psychosis, no delusions, no impaired judgment. She is capable of managing her affairs. He turned to the judge. The petitioners framed Donna as a fragile widow. In truth, they attempted to rob her while she grieved. Her father has already stolen from the company. This is not protection. This is betrayal. The judge's face hardened as she leafed through the evidence. Finally, she looked directly at my parents. "Based on what I see, this petition is not only without merit, it reeks of ulterior motives. Miss Collins is competent. The petitioners, however, have engaged in fraudulent financial activity and may face charges themselves." The gavel struck the sound sharp and final. Case dismissed. Relief rushed through me like air after drowning. My family sat frozen, the performance cracked their masks, slipping into panic. For the first time in months, I felt the ground firm beneath my feet. They had tried to bury me in grief. Instead, I had risen with proof in hand. But as I looked at their pale faces, I knew this wasn't over. Defeat didn't erase greed. It only made it more desperate. The courthouse doors swung open, spilling us into the gray afternoon. I inhaled deeply, the crisp air sharp in my lungs. For the first time in half a year, I felt lighter. Not happy, not yet, but alive. Then I saw them. My family waiting near the parking lot, huddled together like a pack of wolves that had lost their prey. "Donna, please." My mother rushed forward, her hand outstretched, voice trembling with desperation rather than love. "We can work this out as a family. Don't ruin us with lawsuits. You're our daughter." Jake grabbed my arm, his grip too tight. "We didn't mean harm. We were trying to protect you." "Protect me." I yanked free, my voice slicing through his plea. "You tried to strip me of everything. You wanted me locked away in a clinic branded insane while you drained my life dry." Emma's eyes brimmed with tears, though they felt rehearsed. "Think of the children, Donna. My kids. Jake's kids. If you press charges, you'll destroy their future." Their children. The same excuse they'd used when demanding houses' money salaries. Always their children. Never mine. Never Daniel, whose future had been ripped away in a blink. Robert stepped beside me, his presence steady, but I didn't need him to speak. My voice was iron. "You stopped being my family the moment you tried to steal what Mark and I built. You'll never get another chance, not from me." For the first time, my father looked small. The authority in his posture cracked his eyes, darting to the ground. "What do you want from us?" he muttered. "I want nothing," I said coldly. "That's what you are to me now. Nothing." I turned and walked away, their voices chasing me, fading with every step. Days later, Robert called me into his office. My father was there, shoulders slumped, papers spread before him. His arrogance was gone, replaced by fear. "We don't want more court battles," he said quietly. "I'll repay every cent. Just don't press charges." Robert slid the documents toward me. A settlement agreement. They would sell their country house, cover the $120,000 they stole, plus interest, and pay all legal fees for the audit and trial. I picked up the pen. For a fleeting moment, I looked at my father, the man who once taught me how to build tree houses, who now sat broken in a lawyer's office, bargaining for dignity. I waited for a flicker of pity to surface, but there was only emptiness. I signed each stroke of ink, severing the last thread between us. When it was done, my father pushed the papers back toward Robert. He didn't meet my eyes. My mother sat in silence, staring at her clasped hands. Emma and Jake didn't show up at all. The settlement wasn't victory, it was restitution. Money could be repaid. Trust never would. That night, I sat alone in my apartment. For months, I had begged the universe to bring back Mark and Daniel. That prayer had gone unanswered. But something else had been given to me, a brutal clarity. My old family was gone, but perhaps there was space to create a new one. Weeks passed after the settlement, and for the first time in months, I felt the rhythm of life return. Each morning, I went back to the office, not as a ghost clinging to Mark's memory, but as Donna Collins, the rightful owner. Still, I knew I couldn't drown myself in 16-hour workdays, the way Mark and I once had. Life had proven too fragile for that. I hired a seasoned executive to handle day-to-day operations, someone who respected what Mark and I built. Delegating wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I had something more important to fight for now. On a quiet Saturday, I visited the orphanage downtown. The walls were painted cheerful colors, but I saw the truth in the children's eyes, longing, uncertainty, the same emptiness that had lived in me since the accident. A little girl with tangled curls offered me a broken doll, smiling shyly. A boy about Daniel's age clung to my coat as if afraid I'd vanish. In their faces, I saw a chance for healing, not just for them, but for me. Mark and I had once dreamed of a house full of children. That dream had died with him and Daniel, or so I thought. Driving home, I passed the country house my parents once owned, now sold to pay their debt. For years, that place had symbolized family gatherings, barbecues, laughter. Now it stood as a reminder that blood alone does not make family choices do. I didn't speak to my parents or siblings again. The phone calls stopped after the settlement, the silence more liberating than lonely. They had chosen greed over love, betrayal over trust, and I had chosen to let them go. One evening, I sat on the balcony of my apartment, the city glowing beneath me. I imagined Mark sitting beside me, Daniel's laughter drifting from the hallway. The ache was still there, perhaps it always would be, but it no longer hollowed me out. It reminded me of the love I had known and the love I could still give. I whispered into the night, "I'll build a new family, Mark. For us. For Daniel." The wind carried my words away, but I felt lighter, as if they had reached him somehow. Because in the end, wealth houses, even companies, they were fragile things. What mattered was love, the kind of love that isn't stolen, bargained, or bought. The kind you choose even after everything has been taken from you. And for the first time since that terrible day 6 months ago, I felt ready. Ready to love again. Ready to build again. Ready to begin.